There is a number in baseball that separates the merely great from the mythological. 0.38. Not a batting average. Not a slugging percentage. An ERA. An earned run average so low, so historically obscene, that when it flashed across the scoreboards in Los Angeles, veterans in the press box stopped typing. Broadcasters lost their prepared notes. And somewhere in the city, two of the greatest pitchers who ever lived, men who had spent their entire careers chasing perfection on the mound, sat back and said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. Clayton Kershaw. Randy Johnson. Men whose careers are measured in Cy Young awards, in Hall of Fame plaques, in generations of hitters they broke. These are not men who are easily impressed. These are not men who use words like unbelievable carelessly. But 6 scoreless innings. 7 strikeouts. And an ERA that has no business existing in modern baseball. That made them believers. This is not a story about statistics. Statistics are just the shadow that greatness casts. This is the story of what happened on that mound, and what it means for everyone who has ever tried to understand the phenomenon that is Shohei Ohtani. It began the way Ohtani's most dangerous outings always begin, quietly. No dramatic warm-up. No visible intensity that would tip off what was coming. Just a man walking to the mound with the same measured stride he uses to walk to the plate, to the dugout, to the cafeteria. There is a stillness to Ohtani before a start that experienced baseball people find almost unsettling. Not coldness. Not arrogance. Something closer to absolute clarity. By the second inning, the opposing dugout already knew. The fastball was alive in a way that defies simple velocity readings. It wasn't just the speed, it was the movement at the end, the last-second deviation that turns a hittable pitch into an optical illusion. Batters were not late on the fastball. They were making perfect swings at locations that no longer existed by the time the bat arrived. Then came the splitter. If the fastball is a statement, Ohtani's splitter is a verdict. It arrives looking like a fastball, same arm speed, same release point, same initial trajectory, and then falls off the table so sharply that even hitters who have studied it on video, who have faced it before, who know intellectually what is coming, still cannot stop their bodies from reacting to the wrong pitch. 6 innings. 24 outs recorded. 0 earned runs allowed. 7 strikeouts spread across a lineup that came in with genuine confidence. By the final out of the 6th, the number forming in the ERA calculation was so low it required people to check the math twice. 0.38. It was real. Clayton Kershaw spent the better part of 2 decades being the standard by which Dodger pitching greatness was measured. 3 Cy Young awards. An MVP. A career defined by an almost religious commitment to craft, to the idea that pitching, at its highest level, is less a physical act than an intellectual one. Kershaw has seen everything. He has studied film of every great pitcher of his generation. He has dissected mechanics, grips, release angles with the obsession of a scientist and the eye of an artist. If anyone in modern baseball is qualified to assess what happened on that mound, it is Clayton Kershaw. His response, when asked about the performance, was not a technical breakdown. It was not a comparison of spin rates or vertical break measurements. It was simpler than that, and heavier. He said that watching Ohtani pitch at this level, while carrying everything else he carries, forced him to reconsider the framework he uses to evaluate greatness. Because Kershaw's entire career was built on singular focus. On the idea that to be the best pitcher in the world, pitching had to be everything. The obsession could not be divided. Ohtani divided it. And then produced an ERA of 0.38. What Kershaw was processing, in that quiet and honest moment, was not just admiration. It was something closer to a rewriting of assumptions, the kind that happens rarely, and only when something genuinely new appears in the world. Randy Johnson did not become the most feared left-handed pitcher in baseball history by accident. 6'10". A fastball that spent years hovering near 100 miles per hour. A slider so devastating it became its own category of weapon. 5 Cy Young Awards. A perfect game. A career strikeout total that places him among the most dominant pitchers who have ever walked to a mound. Johnson was not gentle with opposing hitters. His presence on the mound was physical, almost confrontational, a towering figure who used his size and ferocity as weapons as much as his pitches. When Johnson speaks about pitching, people listen. Not because of his titles. Because he earned them in a specific, uncompromising way, through dominance so complete it left no room for debate. His reaction to Ohtani's 0.38 ERA was characteristically direct. The numbers, Johnson noted, were not the surprising part. Great pitching produces great numbers, that is expected. What surprised him was the context. The accumulated fatigue of a full hitting season. The physical demands of maintaining a two-way role across the entire length of a major league schedule. The mental weight of being simultaneously the most dangerous position player and one of the most effective starting pitchers in the game. Johnson spent his career managing his body as a single, specialized instrument. Every decision, training load, recovery, what he ate, how he slept, was calibrated around one purpose. Ohtani is calibrating 2 instruments simultaneously. And both of them are currently operating at historically elite levels. Johnson's conclusion was direct. In his view, the 0.38 ERA does not belong in the same conversation as ordinary pitching excellence. It belongs in a separate conversation, one that baseball has never needed to have before. Here is what 6 scoreless innings looks like from the inside, not the version the box score tells you, but the real version. It begins, for Ohtani, approximately 72 hours before the first pitch. The preparation for a start is not simply a matter of arm care and mechanical review. It is a comprehensive system, one that Ohtani has refined across years of testing and self-observation, that governs everything from sleep to nutrition to the specific mental imagery he uses to rehearse pitch sequences against individual hitters. His study of opposing lineups is not casual. Every hitter in that lineup has a documented history, not just the statistics, but the tendencies. The counts they hunt certain pitches. The zones they expand in. The pitches they have swung at and missed versus the pitches they have fouled off versus the pitches they have taken for called strikes. All of it becomes part of a mental map that Ohtani builds before he ever throws a single warm-up pitch. On the mound itself, this preparation expresses as decision-making speed that looks, to observers, like instinct. It is not instinct. It is preparation moving so fast it resembles instinct. When a hitter sits on the fastball in a 1-1 count and Ohtani throws the splitter, that is not a guess. That is a conclusion drawn from a process that began days earlier. When he elevates a fastball to get a swing and miss on a pitch the hitter should theoretically recognize, that is not luck. That is sequencing so precise it removes luck from the equation almost entirely. 6 scoreless innings, when examined this way, are not an outcome. They are a proof. Proof that a preparation system built by one person, for one person, specifically for one of the most unusual physical and cognitive demands in professional sports, is working at the highest possible level. 0.38. Put that number in historical context for a moment. An ERA below 2.00 across a full season is considered genuinely elite. Below 1.50 enters legendary territory. The lowest single-season ERAs in Major League Baseball history belong to pitchers from the deadball era, an era with fundamentally different rules, different equipment, and different conditions than the modern game. In contemporary baseball, with launch-angle optimized swings, with analytical scouting that strips away mechanical advantages within weeks of their emergence, with training methods that produce lineups full of athletes who can punish any mistake, an ERA of 0.38 is not a number that should exist. And yet, what makes this number particularly striking is not just its size. It is who produced it, and under what conditions. A player who is simultaneously posting hitting numbers that would anchor any lineup in either league. A player who is playing through the physical demands of a dual role that has no precedent at this level of the sport. The number is not anomalous. It is not a hot streak. It reflects a sustained level of pitching execution that, when measured against everything else happening simultaneously in Ohtani's professional life, has genuinely left the baseball world searching for new language. The old language, the comparisons, the historical frameworks, the career benchmarks, does not quite fit anymore. That is an uncomfortable realization for a sport that has been measuring itself for over a century. When two legends of Kershaw and Johnson's stature express genuine astonishment, it is worth asking a specific question. What exactly are they responding to? On the surface, they are responding to a pitching performance. But underneath that, underneath the split times and the exit velocities and the strikeout totals, they are responding to something more fundamental. They are responding to the refusal to accept limitation. Both Kershaw and Johnson built their greatness on singular commitment. They were pitchers. Completely, totally, exclusively pitchers. Every adaptation, every sacrifice, every year of professional life was organized around that single identity. Ohtani rejected that structure entirely, not out of arrogance, but out of genuine internal necessity. He could not be only one thing. Something in him required both. And rather than accept the conventional wisdom that the demands of being truly elite in both roles would eventually force compromise in one direction, he built a life, a training life, a nutritional life, a recovery life, a mental life, capable of sustaining both at a world-class level simultaneously. What Kershaw and Johnson are really responding to is the collision between their own hard-won understanding of what greatness costs, and the evidence, now undeniable, that someone found a way to pay that price twice. That is disorienting, even for legends. Perhaps especially for legends. 0.38. 6 scoreless innings. 7 strikeouts. Two legends who have seen everything, stopped cold. There will be analysts who contextualize this. There will be statisticians who find the right small sample size caveat. There will be voices who insist that the full season will tell a different story, that sustainability remains the real question, that history demands patience before it hands out its verdicts. Those voices are not wrong to ask. History deserves patience. But here is what patience cannot explain away. On that particular evening, on that particular mound, with that particular ERA forming in real time, something happened in baseball that even the men most qualified to recognize greatness could not fully process in the moment. They could only watch. Kershaw. Johnson. Men who stood at the summit of this sport and looked out at everything below them. They watched Shohei Ohtani pitch. And for once, they were the ones looking up.